And we are back. Thank you for tuning in. All right, so we're back here with Philly Good. I got my PG hat on, and this is the Goods fam. We're going to be looking at the MPC X again today, reading through the MPC X Bible, and we're on chapter 7, sampling 101. So if you want to follow along, you can definitely do that and download the tutorial files, and that way yeah, we can all learn at the same time. Or you can just watch and follow along on your MPC or MPCX, whichever that you have. You may have a lot of the same functionalities, so if you have the live or the one. But this is your first time tuning in, thank you very much. Follow, subscribe, hit the notifications so you know when my next stream is. But I'm here every day, 10 to 11 a.m. And let's grow a little community around learning about the MPCX. And let's get into it. Sampling 101. And where was I? I was at sampling time. The time field, I guess I'll get back the project that we were working on previously. My first project. Alright, and so yeah, it's on the sampler already, immediately where I was when I left off, so that's amazing. Alright, so the time field, which we've just touched upon in the previous section, shows you the maximum sample time you are dedicating to this particular sampling session. Sampling time is very useful if we are sampling notes from an instrument and we want them all to be, say, 5 seconds long. Simply set the time to 5 seconds and the MPC will only sample each note for that specified time. If you're sampling long passages, okay, so you can change the max length with this down here with the Q links. You can change the minutes and the seconds with the 2 bottom Q links there. Okay. So if you're sampling long passages or maybe performing something directly into the MPC like a vocal, I find it best to set the sample time to a nice long setting, several minutes, or even the maximum, 19 minutes 59 seconds. That way you can be sure that the sampler isn't going to stop recording while you are still performing. The sampling time is controlled by 2 other Q links. Minutes is controlled by Q3 and seconds by Q4, just as I demonstrated down there. Alright, so sampling your sound. Once you've configured all the settings, you can record your sound source. Press ARM to put the sampler into ready mode. And the wording changes from ARM to record. The MPC sampler will now wait for an incoming signal that exceeds the threshold level you previously set. Upon detecting that signal, it will immediately start recording. Alternatively, if the sampler is already armed, you can press record to manually trigger recording. Press cancel at any point to disregard the entire recording procedure. So let me just take a look at that again. So once it's armed, the MPC sampler will now wait for an incoming signal that exceeds the threshold level previously set. Okay. Upon detecting that signal, it immediately starts recording. Let me just turn the mic on and see if that works out. I'll put it on input 1 on, turn the gain up. Oh yeah, just boom. Just turning it on was enough to set it off. Alright, cool. So alternatively, if the sampler is already armed, so we're going to just discard that. And we'll arm it again. Press record to trigger it, to manually trigger it. Press cancel at any time. Where's cancel? I don't know what they mean by press cancel at any point. Because there's no like cancel button and I didn't see it on the screen there. Alright, sometimes it's not exactly as what you see on the MPC X. You may have that showing on your MPC Live or 1, and maybe that's why they're mentioning that. If you have a fixed sampling time, you can let the MPC stop the sampling automatically, which is what I did there because I had it set to 5 seconds. Otherwise, to manually stop the sampling at any point you desire, press the square stop button. After a successful sampling session, you will see the following screen. Okay, let me just, I'll turn the recording to 6 minutes. We'll arm it. Check! 1, 2. No, it's not, input 1. Check, check. I thought that would set it off. Let me turn it up a bit. Check, 1, 2. Yeah, that set it off. Okay. So now see how it's running. It's got a long runtime. It has the stop button that you can manually stop the sampling at any time. Okay. So after successful sampling, this is the screen you'll see. Press play to preview the recording. Check, 1, 2. If there's an issue, simply select discard and you can start the sampling process again. Now it's always a good idea to name your samples rather than using the default new sample name. You can rename samples at a later date if you prefer, or you can do this here on the keep or discard screen. Just touch the keyboard icon to the right of the current sample. The current sample name to bring up the keyboard, enter the new name, and hit do it. To assign to pad option, the assign to pad option allows you to assign the sample to a pad in the current program. Let's just leave this to none. The root note option tells the MPC the musical pitch of the sample, if it has one. I'll cover this later on. Just leave this set to the default C3. Once you've finished naming your sample, you have two options. If you'd like to immediately continue recording more samples, press keep. Your new sound will be stored in memory and you'll be returned to the main sampler screen. Alternatively, you can immediately begin to edit your newly recorded sound. To do this, hit the edit button. Your sample is still kept using this method. But instead of returning to the sampler page, you'll be taken directly to the sample edit screen, which looks like this. Of editing and processing functions. We'll look at this screen in more detail in the next section of this chapter. Saving direct from the sample screen. If you hit the save button, you can save your recording directly to disk. Oh, okay, it's right there. It's on the left side. This could be handy if you wanted to immediately have a backup of a unique recording, such as a vocal or any other type of microphone-based recording. After saving your recording to disk, you'll be returned to the keep or discard page where you can then select keep or edit. So let's see if I don't have a samples folder. Let's see if I'll create a little samples folder under this. Okay, and we'll save it under there as sample 3. So yes, after I've hit save, it returns me back to this screen where I can either hit keep or edit. Sample edit mode. Sample edit mode is where you get a chance to perform a number of different processing functions to any of the sounds loaded into your project, be it functional tasks like tightening up the start and end of a sample, right through to more creative stuff like chopping and time stretching. Sample edit can be used to edit any sample currently stored in memory, whether it is from a sampler session assigned to a program or loaded individually via the browser. In this example, we're going to edit a sample I've previously sampled via the sampler screen. Make sure the ShadowKit V2 program from the previous chapter is currently loaded into your project and selected in main. If it isn't, you can load a copy from folder. Okay, so let's go check this out here in the main mode. I'm gonna go to this unused sequence. We'll go browse and check it out. I have it under my MPC X Bible tutorial files. There it is, chapter 8, sampler, and we're looking for ShadowKit V2. There it is. So the program already exists for me. So I don't know. Oh yeah, there's the ShadowKit V2. I already have it in sequence 12. So I must have loaded it up at a previous point. So now go to browser, enter the chapter 8 folder and press the A05 pad. So it turns green, which, as we already know, it means the next loaded sample will be assigned directly to it. Now load the sample's sampled base. I don't see it there. Oh, there it is. Okay, sampled base. We're gonna load that right into here. What? Where did I load it to? Sampled base. There it is. Alright. Now I've got it loaded up there. Has a bit of a delay to it. It's weird. Okay. I guess that's what we're gonna look at, maybe, is editing that out. Alright. So we've got the pad A05 loaded up with the sampled base. Sampled base will be simultaneously loaded and assigned to pad A05. Hit the pad A05 to hear the sample. We already did that. Okay. Now go to menu, sample edit, or press menu and pad 13, or use the dedicated sample edit button on the MPC X, MPC 1, or you can do shift and mute in the live too. Alright. Waveform editing. Let me just take a second to take a quick break here, take a sip of water. Hello everybody out there, thank you for tuning in today. This is the Goods fam, Philly Good on the MPC X, and we are taking a look at the MPC X Bible, going through step by step, learning how to use in depth the MPC X and all its functionalities. If you can, jump in the chat, donate, subscribe, follow, hit the notification so you know when I stream next, and yeah, everything is appreciated. Let's grow a little community around the MPC X, and let's make some better beats. All right. So we're going to be waveform editing. In sample edit mode, you'll see a graphical representation of the sample's waveform on your screen. If the sample bass sound is not selected, tap on the sample name at the top left of the screen and use the data wheel to scroll through all the samples in memory until you find sample bass. The black bar just above the waveform displays the length of the sample in one of three optional units. Samples, the standard way of measuring the length of audio samples. Time, measured in milliseconds. Beats. This uses a sequencer time of beats, bars, ticks, and is dependent on the BPM set in your current sequence. To select the preferred time units, press the settings icon located at the very top right of the screen, the gear icon. Normally, we would tend to use the default samples. Press close to return to the main sample edit screen. The actual audio is represented by the light lines and filled areas on screen. The taller the waveform peak, the louder these sections of the audio file will be. Areas with no obvious waveform are typically silence or extreme quiet sections of the audio file. As you can see, the waveform, our sampled bass sound has a portion of silence at the start and end of the sample, which is quite normal when dealing with audio recorded from an external source. To preview your entire sample from the very beginning to the very end, press pad 9 on your MPC. Pad 9? I thought we saved it in pad 5, but anyway, let's give it a shot. Okay. Edit points. The playback of your sample is defined by 3 unique edit points. Start point. Start. This tells the MPC where to begin playback of audio. Endpoint, end. This tells your MPC where playback must stop. Loop point. This allows you to set a point where the sample should start looping playback. Where's the loop point? Oh yeah, the start, the end, and the loop point. For the moment, ignore the loop point. It's a bit more of an advanced feature, so we'll look at this later on. Okay. It was getting me confused too. The default start point is at the absolute beginning of the file at 0 samples and is shown by the green S flag marker, while the endpoint is set at the very end of the file and is represented by a red E marker. To find out the current value of any edit point, you can look at the bottom panel. There's a few different settings here, but at this stage we only need to look at start and end. As you can see, start point is 0. Not for me. I've changed it here. I could put it back to 0. and the end is 232275. I changed that as well, so 232275. There we go. It should be clear from looking at the waveform that the actual audio itself in this sample does not start playback at the current sample start point 0. As I showed you previously, a straight horizontal line with no obvious peaks is either complete presents a very, very quiet section. So currently the sample is initially playing back with a brief moment of silence. This kind of gap is very common when you have manually recorded a sample in the sampler screen. This isn't ideal because when we come to trigger the sample later, we would want the audio to play back instantly. To fix this issue, we have to adjust the start point of our sample so it lines up at the point where the actual audio begins, i.e. immediately in front of where the first waveform peak is. Alright, adjusting the start point. There are a few ways to adjust the start point. First, you can place your finger on the green S flag as I did earlier and drag the start point marker across the screen to your desired position in the waveform. Notice how the green flag turns light gray when dragging. Alternatively, you can first single tap the numerical start point parameter itself to select it and then turn the data wheel. But we'll look at the data wheel option in more detail when we look at the zoom function a little later. You can also use the Q-link dials to make start point adjustments. Q-link column 1 controls the start point in varying degrees of resolution. Notice how the start point parameter box is enclosed by an orange rectangle with the Q icon. What? Notice? Oh, maybe when you turn it, it shows a Q? No. As I mentioned in the previous chapter, this orange box and Q icon indicate a parameter that is using all 4 Q-link dials to edit the start point. This must be not for the MPC X, but for the other MPCs live or 1, because I don't see that on mine. Lightly touch your finger on top of the Q-link dial, Q13. That on mine here, but you might see that on the corner of your little start box. There'll be a Q that changes to a times 1000 or something like that. This tells us that turning this dial will move your start point in units of 1000 samples at a time. Do the same for the other 3 Q links in that column and you'll see that the Q9 moves the start point 100 units at a time. Q5 moves 10 units and the bottom Q1 moves 1 unit at a time. So for moving the start point over large distances, use the top 2 Q links and then use the bottom 2 for finer editing. So that's why they all say start there. So I see, okay, mine displays it right above the actual Q link. It says X1, X10, X100, and X1000. So for the other MPCs, you'll see it in the little start box. And if you have show Q-Link status enabled, upon touching a Q-Link, you'll also see the current Q-Link assignments from the side of the screen. What? No, that's only for the MPC X Live, or the one you have like a pop out on this side of the screen. It'll show your Q-Links, which isn't on the X. Also note that you can double tap the start point to bring up a number pad to enter a specific numerical start point. Whichever method you prefer, set your start point roughly where the waveform peak begins, approximately 38830. Okay. Scrubbing audio. I'm just going to take a quick sip of water before I get into this. Hello everyone, thank you for joining. We are going through the MPC X Bible. I'm just going to throw something in the chat real quick. If you can, please jump in the chat. Hello Andrew, hello Anne. Thank you all for checking in. Please tune in every day, 10 to 11 a.m. We'll be learning about the MPC X here on my Twitch channel. Uh-oh. Sorry guys, I have this thing monitoring my heart right now, and one of the pads came off. Alright, so yes, thank you all for subscribing, following, hit the notification to let you know when the streams are on, and please donate or tip or whatever you can do to help support the channel and grow our following and the production value. Alright, so let's continue. Scrubbing audio. If you like to be able to hear the audio while you adjust an edit point, hit the settings icon, top right of the screen. Okay. Now, when you adjust and hit slice preview, okay. Slice preview. You adjust any edit point, you'll hear an audio scrub which plays back the audio immediately before the current edit point. Want to hear what your current edit sounds like? Okay. In sample edit, each of your MPC's rubber pads is dedicated to a specific type of audition playback. If you wish to hear the audio between the start and end points currently set, press your MPC's pad 10 play sample one shot. So press pad 10 and you'll observe that playback begins from the new start point of 38830, not 0. Pad 11 also previews the same audio region as pad 10. However, this pad is set to note on, which means it only plays back for as long as you hold down the pad. Simply pick the type of playback you prefer. Pad 1 is the play from start pad. one-shot version. And this will just play 2 seconds of audio from the current start point. However, press pad 2 and you hear nothing. This is the play 2 start pad and will only play the 2 seconds of audio up to the current start point. Which try previewing with pad 9, play all. You should hear that this play all preview ignores your newly set start point and just plays your entire sample from 0 all the way to the end. Interesting. So, play from start, play to start, play to end, play from end. These are all one shots. Play from start, play to start, play to end, play from end, and play sample. These are all note on. So you have to hold it down and it stops when you release. This plays all. This plays a loop. Play to loop start. Play from loop start. And play loop continuous. Wow. Interesting. Be cool to have that set up so I could see that on the wall here somewhere as a reminder, because it's kind of something that you wouldn't readily know. Well, I'll come back and review it a couple times. Maybe I'll memorize that. Alright. Now, zooming in for accuracy. Now, while everything already sounds pretty good, we can optionally get things much more technically accurate. To do this, we need to magnify the waveform display by zooming in. One way to do this is to use the familiar pinch and zoom technique that you'll no doubt have experienced in smartphones and tablets. To pinch and zoom, first ensure that the zoom tool is selected at the top right of the screen. Now place both your index and middle finger together on the screen over the start of the wavelength, or some people prefer their index finger and thumb, and expand both or one of the fingers sideways. As you do, you'll see the waveform enlarge. If your waveform disappears off screen, just use your finger to drive the waveform to the left or right. If you're not zoomed in enough, simply pinch and zoom again until you get the resolution you wish. You can also zoom in by turning the bottom Q-Link dial in the 4th Q-Link column. You turn it clockwise, or you can use the dedicated Zoom Plus button. Zoom Plus button. I don't know what they mean by that, the dedicated Zoom Plus button. Oh, Zoom Plus. Boop, 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 boop. Alright. Try to zoom in so you can easily see the beginning of the waveform. If you need to adjust the position of the waveform on screen, you can drag the waveform with a single finger or use second from bottom Q-Link in column or bank 4. as you can still move that start point closer to the start of the waveform. Snap to 0. When editing waveforms, it is normal waveform crosses the horizontal line running through the waveform. In most cases, this is the best place to put an edit point, as it normally avoids any clicks in the audio. To have the MPC automatically place your edit point to the near 0 crossing point, we'll turn on Snap to 0. Hold down the Shift button and press 0 snap. So the button turns white with a red line at the top. White with a red line at the top. I don't know what they mean by the red line, but I do see it turns white. It doesn't have a red line on the X. Might on your version, but not on here. So, setting the start point. To move the start point, use any method you prefer. If you want to use the Q links, use the second from top dial to move the bulk of it, and then finish up with the bottom Q link. Alternatively, tap on the start point and turn the data wheel clockwise. The accuracy of each data wheel click is proportionally linked to the current zoom magnification. So, at highest, magnifications of each click of the wheel represents a single sample point. Just remember that with Snap 0 selected, the start point will jump to each successive 0 crossing point. Gotcha, I heard it. Just remember that with Snap 0 selected, the start point will jump to each successive 0 crossing point. Yes, alright. At maximum magnification, set your start point to 40833. Okay. Preview the audio from the new start point using pad 1. Play from start, or pad 10 play sample. It sounds great. Adjusting the end point. Just going to take a quick sip of water before we adjust the end point. Thank you everybody joining out there, everybody watching, very much appreciated. We're just taking a look at the MPC X Bible, following along and learning how to use the MPC X properly. Please follow, subscribe, and hit the notifications so you know when I stream next. And please support the channel in any way you can. Thank you. Alright, adjusting the endpoint. The process for adjusting the endpoint is pretty much identical to that for the start point, except this time we want to remove the dead space at the end of the sample. As screen, tap the end parameter and turn the data wheel, or use the Q links. This time it's Q-Link column 2 for the endpoint adjustments. Using your preferred methods, set the endpoint to 158052. To hear what this sounds like, press pad 10. That sounds pretty good. Now press pad 4, play from end. This plays all the audio after your endpoint, and hopefully you should hear absolutely nothing. You can check more accurately using headphones. All sounding good so far. The discard function. We no longer need these areas of silence either side of the start and end points, so let's get rid of them. Press the process button at the bottom right of the screen to bring up the process sample dialog. With the function parameters selected, use the data wheel to select the discard button. Okay. The discard function simply removes all sample data outside of the start and end points that you previously set. Any data in between these points shall be kept. To discard unwanted data, just press Do It. Now you have a perfectly trimmed sample that uses the minimum amount of storage and memory. Reduce the magnification so you can see the newly trimmed sample in all its glory. If you make a mistake, don't worry, as you can undo the discard edit by simply hitting the dedicated undo button on your MPC hardware. If you decide you don't like the undo, hold down Shift and press undo again, and it will redo the original edit. Undo the undo. If you repeatedly press the undo button, you are able to undo up to 512 steps. Don't forget the undo history screen available via the menu screen. The undo history screen. Undo history. The undo history screen via the menu screen. So I'm on menu right now, but I don't really see or know what they mean by the undo history. I must have seen this at a previous point, but I'm not recalling how that's accessed. So if you remember, please drop it in the chat. That would be cool to remember. All right. Normalizing. After trimming your sample start and end points, one operation you may possibly consider is the process of normalizing. Normalizing will simply raise the gain of the entire sample so that the loudest peaks in the waveform sit at 0 decibel, giving the maximum output without making any actual changes to the makeup of the file itself. Normalization is no substitute for recording your sample at the hottest level possible in the first place, as it also increases the level of any existing noise present in the sample, but it is a great way of increasing the working volume of an already recorded sample. To normalize your sample, simply press Process, select Normalize, and hit Do It. Your sample is now at maximum level. We'll become more familiar with many of the other sample processing functions as we progress through the book. Renaming an edited file. You may have noticed there's a keyboard icon next to the sample name in Sample Edit. You can press this to rename the currently selected sample. You can check out my version of the trimmed bass sample by loading up dub bass note from the 008 folder. Saving a sample. All samples that you record and edit within the MPC will always be saved as part of your standard project save, as a project is simply everything in memory at the time of saving. If for any reason you need to save a sample separately to a different location to your project, just make sure it's the currently selected sample in the sample edit. Okay, and then you hit Menu and save it to your preferred disk location. So I'm under Samples here, and we'll call this Sampled Bass Sample. Alright, and we'll save it there. Cool. So now the current sample is saved. Very nice. All right, so we're at chapter 9, recording a bass line with 16 levels. We're only 7 minutes out for today, so I think I'll just jump in the chat for a couple minutes here, and then we'll put on the beat I made yesterday as some outro music you can check out for the last few minutes. Hello everybody. Thank you for joining. Very happy about that. Shout out to DJ Whisper 1984. Check out his show. He plays some awesome tunes that you can jam to. I think he's there Thursdays and Friday and Saturday night at 8 p.m. So yeah, check him out. Good time. Please follow, like, subscribe, whatever it is you can do. Support the channel to make it a better production and to grow. My goal is to get right now 5 viewers that are chatting at the same time in the chat. So if I can get up to 5 chatters at the same time, that would be nice. Let's grow this channel and get a better following so we can all help each other with learning. Alright, so I'm going to jump out of here for today and go back to the project that we had yesterday, and it was just a random beat I made with some loops from Splice. Nothing too special, and I was just playing around with the effects on it, and this is what I came up with. Hope you all enjoy and have a great day. Back tomorrow, chapter 9 on the MPC X Bible. If you can, please load it up and follow along with the tutorial files. Drop anything in the chat, any comments, suggestions, it's all appreciated. Thank you, Andrew Burrows, for watching once again. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you, Anne, for checking in. Thank you, Andrew, and anybody else who was watching live. And if you're watching this, I appreciate it all. And I think that's it for today. We're going to be out. Tomorrow, 10 to 11 a.m. Peace out.